Hello, good morning our viewers and participants for today's Ask a Doc program. I'm Dr. Shafiq Dosaji. I'm a pediatric consultant and I'm working with MP Shah Children's Hospital here in Nairobi, Kenya. Today's topic is going to be about the newborn care, and we have got very many questions regarding the newborns, and I'm going to elaborate the questions one by one. So I'm going to start with what a newborn means. A newborn is any baby who is born between day 0 or day 1 up to the day 28. And this baby is called a newborn baby or a neonatal baby. So the first question here is what is newborn screening and why is it necessary? So I'm going to elaborate about the newborn screening. Newborn screening was a program which was initiated by the United States in 1960s. And this was due to a lot of babies being born with some congenital defects. And these defects were leading to some genetic diseases like phenylketonuria, like methylmalonic acidemia, galactosemia, congenital hypothyroidism. And there was a chemist whose name was Guthrie. And this test was developed by Dr. Guthrie, who developed some filter papers in which heel-toe blood samples were taken from the babies and they were sent to a special lab where these tests were being done. And later on, in 1960s, there were only about 8 tests which were being conducted, but this modern technology and the modern world has brought about 84 congenital tests that are being done right at the moment. So many countries have got this as a public health program. I think Kenya has not initiated this program, but privately patients can request their doctors, neonatal doctors or pediatricians, when their babies are born, and certain laboratories are doing this test. So these tests are being done in Kenya as well, but it's not a government or a national program right now. What I wanted to emphasize is in neonatal screening program, we do look for some congenital diseases that are going to, affect the parent's life and they're going to affect the child's life as well. So the most easier ones are congenital hypothyroidism, and this is a very simple test which can be done, like it's done everywhere in Kenya. All hospitals are doing this test, and just by looking at the TSH samples, and we can know that the baby has got a congenital hypothyroidism or not. But the other tests like phenylketonuria, galactosemia, the severe combined immune deficiency syndromes, methylmalonic acidemia, urea cycle defects, these are very expensive tests, and these tests are conducted by a test called tandem mass. So these tests have to be requested, and when a pediatrician or a neonatologist discovers that the baby has got certain problems during the early days of life, we do conduct this test, and we have the results in a couple of days. Regarding the newborn screening, I would like to emphasize on congenital hip dislocations. These are a very common problem in female babies and babies who are being born breached. So in this case, we would like parents to keep in mind that when the babies are about 4 to 8 weeks, an ultrasound scan has been done for the babies for the hips. The third part here that I would like to emphasize is the audiology test. Audiology is very important because this can impair the child's growth, the child's linguistic skills, the child's developmental skills. And audiology tests are quite frequent, and most of the European and American countries are doing these tests regularly on a regular basis. The second topic here is about my baby is sleeping too much. I would like to say that when babies are in their mother's womb, they are in an amniotic fluid and they sleep most of their time. They're just respirating and their hearts are just beating and they're being fed with the umbilical arteries and veins. What I want to say here is that newborn babies do sleep. They sleep almost 16 to 18 hours per day. And with this sleep, they will, try to calm themselves. They have come to a very big stress. They've come to this world, and they need to, succumb to the stresses of this world. So they have to sleep enough. They have to grow, and we know that all babies require a lot of, food intake in terms of breast milk. And they take almost 25 to 30 grams per day. and in a month's time they will have gotten about 900 to about 1,000 grams. The third question here is, my baby can't stop crying, what could be the issue? Well, a crying baby is a fussy baby, and fussy babies, first of all, a pediatrician would think of a colic pain here. So most of the babies, when they are at the age of 15 days postpartum, they start to have change in their abdominal gut flora, and this abdominal gut flora is causing some imbalance between the good flora and the bad flora, and this is causing a lot of pain to the babies. And it could also be due to the foods that the mom is eating, and which could be an allergy to this baby, and this could be the first sign that the baby is having certain type of allergy. It could be due to dairy products, it could be due to mother eating eggs. We need to do the test later on if things are getting worse. What do you do when your baby is crying? So you have to calm down the baby. There are certain ways of calming down the baby. The first thing is to give a baby a warm bath. The second is to give a baby a good massage. The third is using certain medications. These medications are mostly herbal medications. We have certain drops. We have like grape mixture or water, which can be given to the babies, and they could also calm the baby. The fourth thing would be, like putting a baby in a cradle, and try to calm down the baby. So there are many ways of doing this and trying to calm the baby. But if this problem persists, then you should get an appointment with your pediatrician, and certain things have to be checked out. There is another question here regarding, will I spoil my baby if I pick her up every time she cries? Well, there is a saying where you in a certain way you need to calm down your baby, because the baby is really crying, and it's causing a lot of anxiety to the parents. It's also causing a lot of stress to the mother, and due to these crying spells of the babies, sometimes the mother gets a lot of stress, and the breast milk could start to slow down, and this could affect the baby's health later on in life. So you need to, of course, carry your baby, but we do not want you to shake the baby up and down, because there is something called shaken baby syndrome. So this shaken baby syndrome is causing a lot of damage to the brain and the brain development of this baby, and this could lead to some other consequences later in life. So we do not want parents to really hold the babies and shake the baby up and down. You can swing slightly, and just carry, and try to soothe your baby, and this would probably help. There is another question here. I'm COVID-19 positive and I have to breastfeed my baby. What should I do? Well, you all know that this is now a way of life for us to live with this COVID-19 virus. What has been, the researches that have been done till today is that we do not know, none of the physicians know that COVID-19 passes through the breast milk. So what we would like the mother to do is, if a mother is a COVID-19 patient, then the mother will cover her face with a cloth, and then put on an N95 mask or a double mask, and wash her hands properly, make sure that she is wearing clean clothes, and then she could feed on her baby. So my message here is we do follow the guidelines of WHO, and these guidelines at the moment are saying that COVID-19 virus does not pass through the breast milk. But the only thing is, if the mother is COVID-19 positive, she should take measures that she will not infect the baby with this virus. How often should I breastfeed my child, and how long should I be breastfeeding session last? Well, you know that WHO is emphasizing on breastfeeding for up to 6 months, and then after 6 months we do initiate solid foods, and sometimes if the mother needs to go to work and if weaning has to be done, then it should be after 6 months. So what I would say here is continue breastfeeding even after 6 months up to about a year. if possible, till about 2 years. This is what the WHO recommendations are. But I will emphasize that a mother has to breastfeed till 6 months, and then she should initiate giving some solid foods. Now, how long a breastfeeding session should last? Well, breastfeeding sessions should last for about 15 to 20 minutes. And the mother has to start with, let's say, on the right breast, and then move on to the left breast. There are two theories here. The theory number one says that the baby can be breastfed on both the breasts at the same time. Well, I would like the mother to follow the second theory, which says that the mother should use each breast for each feeding session. So if it's, let's say, the mother is starting to breastfeed at 8 o'clock in the morning, she should give the right breast, and after 2 hours at 10 o'clock, she should move on to the left breast so that the right breast can be filled up with enough milk. There is another question here: what is the best way to deal with colic in babies? So, well, I just spoke about this colic issue. Colic babies are really fussy babies, and they start to have these pains starting at day 15, and it ends up at around 2.5 to 3 months. This is an issue with almost 80 to 90% of all babies. And what we would like to do is the mother has to take care about her diet. So, well, we Kenyans here, we like to eat a lot of lentils like maharage, kunde, dengu and stuff. So I would like tell the mothers to, well, they can eat the maharage and the dengus and everything, but not every day. They should balance the diet. They should take enough of starch. They should take enough of fruits, enough of proteins. Proteins means they could take some fish, chicken, meat. Pork eating people can take pork. There's no harm in that. But our emphasis here is that the mother has not to be constipated, and she should not be, having problems with gas and bloating. Then this will also affect her child. There are certain medications that can be used for, children having a lot of flatulence and bloating and colic pains. We have gripe water. We have some drops like Simaticon. We have some probiotics drops that we can give to the babies, and they can calm down. There are certain techniques that the mothers can use, like massaging the baby. You can use almond oil, you can use coconut oil, you can just apply the oil on the abdominal area and just, soothingly massage the baby, and this can help the baby to calm down. You can also give, a warm bath to your baby. This is also one way of calming the baby, and just notice that the colic pain comes every day at the same time, almost at the same time, and it's almost every day in the evenings. So this will start at the beginning of the 15th day and ending up after about 6 to 8 weeks of the newborn. There is one more question here. How often should I bath my baby? There are two types of consensus here. The first consensus is to give the bath every day if there is no problem, if it's a hot weather country where the temperatures are about 35-40 degrees. So you can wash your baby every day, but here the only thing is we do not want you to use a lot of shampoos and soaps, because then you're removing the oily part of the skin, which is the most protective part of the skin, for the newborns. And everybody's skin has got normal flora, normal bacteria which are protecting our skin. That's why we don't get infections every day. But here there is another consensus, another group of pediatricians who want their babies to be bathed only 3 to 4 times a week. And we would like the babies, after their bath, should be, put oil. This could be, any baby oil or almond oil, coconut oil, it does not matter. Or it can be even a pure Vaseline. But babies' skin should not be dry, because the dry skin will later on lead babies having atopic dermatitis and eczema and some other problems in life. There is another question here. Does my diet as a mother affect my newborn child? Yes, I did touch this question when I was talking about colic pain in kids. So mother's diet is very important, and we want the mothers to be fed in a proper manner, in a proper balanced diet. And this balanced diet includes, starch like potatoes, rice, ugali, if cassava is in the diet, cassava. And, we want mothers to have enough of proteins. This could be fish, this could be chicken, this could be pork, this could be meat. And this could be in a balanced diet. Other sources of proteins are eggs, cheese, dairy products like yogurt and milk, and this could be also taken if it's not hurting or it's not causing any problem to the mother. So dairy products are very important. They are a good source of calcium for both the mother and the kids. And there could be some vitamin supplements if really necessary. I mean, I do not say that all mothers should take vitamins, but certain groups of women need vitamins, especially the Muslim women who are clothing, with a veil, and if they are not getting enough of sunlight, this could hamper their children's calcium values. So we would like those women who are, covering themselves or having veils, wearing veils, they could take some supplements of calcium and vitamin D. There is another question here. Is it safe to soothe my baby with a pacifier? Well, pacifiers are a really good source of keeping your baby, calm, and, it's a very good method to, calm down your baby. Myself as a father, I've used this for my own kid when she was really, a fussy and a colic baby. So I would recommend using a pacifier, but there are pros and cons for these pacifiers. The pros and cons, the pros for the pacifiers are that, it really helps in, calming down the baby. It really helps in a good pattern, the baby can sleep very well. And then it also helps, in baby having a good sucking reflex, and they develop their muscles for sucking. But the cons are that you can have an infection. The baby can have an infection, because if you are not sterilizing the pacifiers properly, or you just leave them everywhere, the baby could have a bout of gastroenteritis. So the first thing is infection. The second thing is they could get used to with the pacifiers, and then later on in life, they will not want to suck your breast, and probably, they could be weaned off early from breastfeeding. The third is a lot of babies with pacifiers have otitis media, middle ear infections. So be careful when you're using pacifiers. Your babies could later on in life develop middle ear infections. So these are the con side of pacifiers. The question here is, my baby is never full with breast milk. How soon can I introduce him/her to substitute meal, and which meals are safe? I've just spoken about the WHO recommendations. If a mother has got enough breast milk and the baby is gaining enough weight, the pediatricians will know if a baby is gaining enough weight or not, and they will always tell you that your breast milk is not enough, you need to supplement. So if you need to supplement, then you will supplement it with the permission of your pediatrician. But my recommendation here, and the general recommendation from WHO, is up to the first 6 months you need to breastfeed your baby, and after 6 months we will talk up with you that what you need to introduce. So you need to introduce certain things very slowly, because we are afraid of certain allergies that the babies would develop after 6 months of life. So you need to ask your pediatricians whenever you are starting on a weaning, and whenever you are starting on a new foods. Should my baby boy wear diapers throughout the day? I'm afraid of the myths and misconceptions about the effects of diapers on baby boys. Well, I think these myths are non-compatible, because my thoughts are diapers do not affect in any way. This is the myths of testicles getting back into the abdominal area. We call this retractile testes, or undescended testes. Sometimes also they have the same thing, that they come down and they are there in the scrotum, and then sometimes when it's a cold season, or when the temperature around the baby is cool, they would retract back into the inguinal or the abdominal area. So I don't think so that the diapers are really affecting this. It's a congenital problem with the baby, And if this problem is happening, if you see that the testicles are not descended and they are up or they're coming down and then sometimes they're going back up, you need to see a pediatrician or a pediatric surgeon. Because at the age of 1 year or maximum at the age of 2 years, if we have this problem of undescended testes or retractile testes, they need to be operated. What would you term as a safe environment for a newborn? Well, a safe environment for any newborn is a sterile environment, a good environment, a good place for a baby to breathe the clean air. These are the safest environment that I could say. So whenever you have a newborn in your home, you really need to be careful. If you have other siblings, you need to be careful of these other siblings because they can, in the newborn time, can come and harm the newborn baby because they are not used to, even if they know that this is my brother or this is my sister, but they would not know the newborn. And I have experience with a neighbor of mine when I was living in Turkey. A 3-day-old baby was, the girl who was 6 years old tried to carry the baby and then dropped the baby down, and the baby, the 3-day-old baby, really had a brain hemorrhage. So it's a bad experience. I mean, to have a safe environment, you need to have an eye on the baby. So if you are going to the kitchen, if you are going to the bathroom, you need to leave that baby with a nanny or with somebody who is an adult, not a child. Okay, don't do this mistake. And this is what we call a safe environment for a newborn. And my last question here that I see is, my baby has rashes all over his body. What could be the reason? Well, in pediatrics we have rashes. Rashes is our main topic, apart from the upper respiratory tract infections. Many babies come to us with different types of rashes. So we really need to differentiate. What are these rashes? Are these rashes just a heat rash? Are these rashes a fungal, tinea corporis, tinea pedis, or tinea capitis, or is it pityriasis versicolor? Or are these rashes just rashes due to any upper respiratory tract infection, a viral infection? Because most of the viruses, they show up themselves with a fever, and then you have the rashes. So all rashes have to be looked first by a pediatrician, not by a dermatologist, because we are trained to know the rashes of kids. So when we say that we cannot diagnose, when we say that we cannot treat these rashes, then that baby has to go to a dermatologist. And the dermatologist has to make a final decision what these rashes are. So my concern here is rashes could be of many reasons. There could be the reasons of allergy or atopy, and we call them atopic dermatitis. There could be, rashes of heat rashes. There could be fungal, or there could be, some other reasons which are also causing a lot of rashes in babies. So you must see your pediatrician if there is any problem with rashes. Just don't apply any creams. I know some mothers are applying corticosteroid creams. They know that hydrocortisone is a solution for everything, but this is not the way. Don't apply any creams before asking your pediatrician. So we have come to the end of our session of Ask a Doc, and if there are any questions, you can always post these questions on our Facebook page of MP Shah, and you can always contact me at MP Shah Village Market Clinic. You can always contact us on our Facebook, or you can make a call at the call center, and we will always try to respond to you. Thank you very much, and stay safe.